Hey guys, welcome back to Chris and Retro. As promised, tonight's guest is former US Congressman Tom Reed. As it was his official role, but I call him friend. He's a tremendous individual, and I've over the last couple of years we've become close. And I understand the notion of a fellow traveler probably more than I ever did before with my friendship with Tom. And I'd like to welcome Tom to the show.
It's good to be here with you, Chris, and I appreciate being on this journey with you. And to everybody out there watching and tuning in, just know you're never alone. I am you, you are me. We are all one and the same. We were born, we're gonna die, and we have a journey in between. And I truly believe my higher power, which is God, will guide us through each and every one of these moments. And they are moments, roller coasters, up and down. So just great to be with you, Chris, and appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm really glad you're here. Tom and I have a lot of in-depth conversations. Some of them are a little craziness. It seems like we always joke that we kind of do a co-sponsorship sort of thing, is that in that when he's up, I'm down. When I'm down, he's up. It's like, God seems to match our situations well. And some days are both kind of going through it, and we just kind of commiserate a little bit and plow through it together. But out of this, Tom had a brain stormed idea called a program called I Am You, You Are Me, and it's something that's got installed for us because there's three people part of it: myself, Tom, and Sam Engelbrett, that you know as my fiance, and all three of us have gone through one heck of a time since day one on that program. And so we have to believe that there's a spiritual component to our work, and that's that the enemy is not crazy about the work we're doing. So we'll be back on that, and tonight's another effort for us to keep moving forward. One of the things that we talked about this week, Tom and I were in a discussion group with men, and there was things brought up about powerlessness, and the context was powerlessness over alcohol, but I took it as powerlessness over life, period. We have so much that's out of our control. We have our own hurts and hangups and failures. We have our addictions and mental health issues. We have all this stuff going on, and Tom and I are not unique in that. We know that you have these challenges as well. And tonight, what we'd like to do is just talk about some of that things and see, some of the things we're going through, and possibly some, solutions that we might be able to offer you. So Tom, we've talked about this. We've sat in meetings and heard other people's perspective on it. I'm just curious, what your initial thoughts are when we look at, the notion of powerlessness and all this stuff that we have to deal with in life that keeps hitting us.
Well, I think this, as we have talked, Chris, and as we talked even as recently as that men's group meeting, where we were talking firsthand with numerous other folks that have wrestled with this concept of control, of powerlessness. And as we go further down this path, journey, and we and you and I both come across individuals who are very successful, very type A in how they go about their lives. I was one of them for 52 years of my life, living that type of take the wheel and drive it through. And I'll just tell you what I am learning each and every day as I go further down this journey is my life is better. My life is healthier when I let go of the wheel, when I truly do recognize that I'm not in control. I am not the one who needs to solve all the problems of the world, of my wife, of my children, and those are people that are the closest to me, and my friends and complete strangers. I do have to show up. I do have to be a tool for him who has the plan for us, who's in control of really our mortality. It's so funny when I talk to people on this issue, and you really have an honest conversation with them. I go, do you really believe you're in control of when you come and when you go? We don't know when our last breath is going to be. I've had a few near-death experiences in my life, and I'll tell you, I should have learned it right after that first one. But it is amazing how we are human, and there is a component of us that just does not want to let go of the wheel. And to a lot of people, it scares them. I think a lot of it's fear, Chris. It's what I pick up in those discussion meetings. Just in a meeting tonight I was at, heard the exact same thing of fear, really trying to cause people to not let go and not recognize. You got to do your part, but do your part consistent with what that plan is for your life. And that is very hard to do. and let him or your higher power or whoever you believe in, who is in control of this entire universe, guide you, and let him or her, if that's what you believe, be the force that brings you through it.
I think it's interesting that you're bringing up fear, because fear is obviously one of my triggers, and it is for a lot of people that struggle with addiction. But to your point, we don't recognize like the greater calamity going around us when we're fearful. I read one time that anxiety is the thing that gets to you, that says, okay, there might be a snake in this walk that I'm walking on. There might possibly be a snake here, and you're stressed about the snake that might be there that never showed up. Fear is seeing the snake and trying to avoid getting bit by that snake that's very much in your eyes. But you're so focused on that snake that you forget about the bear in the woods, the mountain lion behind you, and I think that a lot of times when we get so narrow-minded about whatever it is that we're afraid of, things like our mortality and the time that we're wasting, it's baffling. I saw an interview today with a gentleman that he said, for 10 years, I just blew my life. I just absolutely blew my life until I could get to that point that I could lay down drugs and alcohol and start making progress. We get so narrow focused on whatever it is that we're trying to hide from, we forget that we're actually causing for ourselves so many bigger problems. Sam is facing that now. I certainly have faced it multiple times in my life. And, fear is the great blinder. And I think that that's why it's such a great tool to bring us down. I think it's part of the perfect masterpiece that Satan has in addiction, is he puts fear in there. And then we're just so focused on this thing in front of us that we forget about everything, single thing else, including our families, our children, our responsibilities, our reputation.
And I'll add, out of that fear is driven by ego, that somehow we can prevent this, that we as individuals, as a human being, have the ability to not step on that snake. Sooner or later, we're going to step on that snake.
Right.
It's, because we're born and we die. And it's the people that I find most successful in life, that have truly found peace, comfort, and success. Not just financial success, but you can measure success in so many different ways. But even the people that are the most successful when it comes to finances, when they have the ability to not be afraid, to walk in confidence that, what, tomorrow could be my last day. I'm going to make the most of today, and stay in the moment and stay in that day, as opposed to that what if thinking that, okay, I can control it. I know it's going to happen, so therefore I won't step into the field and step on the grass. And that is paralyzing. And that's when you waste, to your point about the individual who talked for 10 years of his life. That's what I think that's what I hear when you describe that, is that they wasted that time because they were afraid to take the step, because they were paralyzed by the what if.
Right. You and I have talked about the other side of it too, though. We're in our 50s, and, we depending on the day, make our clock shorter or longer. Some days we feel invincible and we can last till we're 115 years old. And then other times we're going to make it to 52 and a half, because we've, depending on whatever our mindset is that day. It really, that's the difference between mindfulness and, obsession over wherever you are. The mindfulness just says, I'm going to take the stock and where I'm at. I'm going to appreciate this moment, and I'm going to do the most I possibly can do right now. Whereas the rest of it is looking at, the worst of it, in my opinion. The more I analyze age and my standing in life and death and things like that, I can easily get paralyzed by it and start becoming hopeless. Recognizing that, we don't know the hour, so make the most of while you're here. We just don't. I don't think we can afford to waste time. That's been a big part of my life, is wasting time.
Amen. And we do that, and we're human beings, and we're wired to do that, because it all goes back to that inability to trust the moment. It's the inability to get away from being paralyzed about the what if. Keep speculating. I have to do this. I have to go to this school. I have to go in front of this group, or I have to get to know these people. As opposed to, you know what? Let's maybe trust that there's something bigger here. That there is a God. There is a higher power. There is some force, whatever you want to describe it as, that's really got the plan for us. And we just have to do our part and be open to listening. That's what we don't do a lot of. And that's what I find for me, is that it's hard for me to listen. It's hard for me not to want to solve someone else's problems. It's hard for me to just listen and be a true ear, And when I do that, because I know I can do it, I have done it. I've done it with you. You've done it for me. When that exchange happens, it is so powerful, and truly, the magic of those moments is extremely powerful.
I think one of the challenges for us is, that we always talk about listening versus hearing. I mean, that's kind of a cliche over time. Are you actually hearing what's being said? It's easy for me to hear you. You've given me some tough conversations over the years. You said, Chris, you really can't do that, or be nice. There's been certain individuals that have come into my life that have caused some problems, and you've given me the be nice conversation. But the reason I hear you rather than just listen to you is because we're like-minded. But there's a lot of good advice we can get from people that we're not like-minded. I mean, in your work in Congress, what was the Promise Keepers Caucus? Is that what it's called?
The Problem Solvers
Caucus. Problem Solvers Caucus. And I always get that wrong for some reason. I just got to hang up on that. But the Problem Solvers Caucus, the whole point of that was to take differentiating, minds and get to a place where you're actually getting some problems solved and moving forward. But I think that in recovery and mental health and generally just in life, we gravitate more towards the people that we're like-minded with, when there actually is some good advice out there if you'll just listen to what other people are doing in terms of their journey as well. You don't have to agree with everything that they're lined up for, but there is some good advice out there if you just stop for a minute and you're not just listening to them, but you're actually hearing what's being said, and rather than have it framed in whatever mindset you bring to the table. I do that all the time. Somebody might be telling me something that makes a lot of sense, but I'm hearing it based on what I expect them to say and what my belief system says I must hear it as, rather than just pausing for a minute and hearing what they have to say. And then I can evaluate whether it's something I want to do something with or not.
I totally agree. And I would add one other wrinkle to that is some of the wisest people that I have come across don't even know how wise they are. Don't even know the street smarts that they have. They don't have degrees. They don't have, huge studies and acronyms after their names that are 20 alphabet-sized titles. I mean, these are just regular street smart individuals that have learned because they kept their eyes, heart, and mind open to the lessons of life. And when they share that wisdom, it is so amazing to me. Now, don't get me wrong. I totally respect those people that have gone to universities, that have gone on to huge titles. There's a lot of wisdom they have to offer. But sometimes I see with those individuals either a fakeness, a shallowness in their titles and their experience. And those I discount very quickly. It's the sincere, genuine people who know who they are, have learned the lessons, and share it in a way that it's not threatening them to bring you in because they don't want to give up their piece of the pie. If you can find individuals like that, hold them close and bring them in tighter and listen to them much closer.
That's advice actually that you do all the time. I don't know if you're aware that you do it or not. I think it's just become second nature for you. But this is advice I'd give the audience as well. One thing that Tom does very well is he can take somebody that's really struggling, recognize they're struggling, and pull out the value that he sees in. I actually just saw this the other night with a gentleman, obviously, that was in there. He'd been in and out a little bit. He looked like he was having a hard time. And you were engaged with him, but also heard what he was saying and the value that what he was saying. And you allowed him to have credibility even when he was clearly struggling. And I think that's one thing that we miss is we either are the person that desperately needs help, or we're the person that's master and commander coach. And we're not just meeting people where they're at and just saying, look, I hear what you're saying. This is not all as bad as you think it is. You actually do have value, and your point makes sense to me. That puts them on a playing field that they're like, you know what? I might be able to do this. Just those small conversations, I think they're really important.
So important. And that's respecting human life. That's respecting that everybody has value. I have not come across a soul in the world and I've met some amazing people, but I've also met some very evil people. But even they, I have found, have something to teach, or they have some value. Now, it doesn't mean you embrace them. It doesn't mean like you honor them in any way.
I hope not.
They're still human beings. There's still something there. And maybe that's just being naive. Maybe that's just being childish and the eternal optimist that I am. But maybe that's what you're picking up on, Chris, that comes across because I've met some numerous broken people in my journey of 52 years. And I recognize that, you know what, even those that are completely broken, again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying embrace psychopaths or anything like that. I'm
Mhm.
talking about people that are just broken and who feel worthless. They have something to offer. People in this world that are listening to us, they're here for a reason. And
Mhm.
I so appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation, not only with you, but with them. And
Right.
that's where, as we go forward with this, I truly hope we can make it very interactive. We can make it very live stream type of thing. Just popped in my head like a Delilah show where they call in, that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that they can share the journey with us and know they're
Right.
not alone. Nobody's alone in this world.
Right. What Tom's referring to is the I am you, you are me program that we've been working on. We started with some interviews in the street and worked through that, and we did a little bit of work. But life, we got bombed with some nonsense. I mean, Sam got absolutely annihilated. I got hit with a bunch of stuff. You got hit with a bunch of stuff, and it was very obvious that the work we were doing was supposed to be out there, but our enemy was clearly after it. There was one
But
piece about
that's where Christian Retro. That's where you've been doing this work for years.
yeah,
There's so many different avenues,
yeah,
and not just this show, that show, but as we go forward, even in this show, just sending the message to people, you're not alone.
mhm,
Everybody, there's so many people that I find in this darkness that are like, oh my God, I can't believe you shared that intimate story about your life. I thought it only happened to me, and I
yep,
was afraid to speak about it. It goes back to the fear. It goes back to not trusting your fellow human being. We need a lot more trust in this world, and I just hope people are confident enough to do that, and the strength that it takes to recognize you're not alone and take a chance to expose yourself to your fellow human being. You'll be amazed. You'll be amazed how many people through that fellowship, that
right.
friendship, that human experience will help you out.
Yeah, there's one part of your story I've never made the correlation with, and I just did. It hit me when you were talking. So I got a mixed bag of people here in the audience. Actually, my last two guests, one he goes by a street name Preacher. He, under the guise of preaching to addicts, he became one. And so he had a pretty powerful story. Another one, 2 years ago, she was in a coma from drug addiction and in Las Vegas or out in Nevada. I think it was Las Vegas. Her parents came and got her. 2 years later, she's now 2-0 as a K1 kickboxer, and she just won again last weekend. So these extraordinary stories of recovery. But I'm telling you this because I have everything from business professionals to people that have those types of stories on here. And one thing I think that some people struggle with is their total identity is the street. And for many men, there's a lot of power they had in the street. You're a very powerful individual when you were actively in office, and even now, so with some of the things that you're involved in, you still have a tremendous amount of power. And the street guys in their own right had a lot of power. How do for them and for others that are in professional settings that have these transition in life where you're not in those roles anymore, how did you transition? I know you still are very much involved in a lot of things, but how do you make that transition where you're not the guy in the room that can make anything happen? How do you make that transition to where you still have all the valuable things that made you that great, but now you're in this new stage in life? What advice would you give to others like you, as well as these street guys that they can't be in that life anymore?
I will tell you, it's something I still struggle with. So I'm still going through this journey and uncovering this. I'm listening to people like yourself and others and those same individuals that have gone through it. I reach out, not afraid to share my vulnerability and say, look, I'm struggling today.
Mhm,
And that's like when you're up, I'm down, you're up, and
mhm,
vice versa. That's why having people like yourself around you and other people that you can have the confidence and comfort and trust to say, you know what, I'm going to get a little vulnerable here and say, how did you get through it? Or how did you get through today?
mhm.
If you have to break it down to the minute, to the second, to the hour, or day by day. And so I do struggle with this, but one of the things that I'm finding, the more I recognize that I'm not in control, that I just continue to do the work but follow the plan, if that makes any sense to people out there,
Mhm.
the more successful and peaceful I am. And it has a magnifying effect. It truly does, um, because it opens up doors. It opens up relationships. It opens up a strength and an inner compass that actually makes you stronger. I've had financial success as a result of it. I've had spiritual success. I've had personal success. And don't get me wrong, again, I'm just like everybody else. It's one day at a time, often. And it's a roller coaster. It's up and down. But overall, the trajectory is going in the right trajectory on all fronts when you truly tune into it. What I find is when I start trying to take that control back, and that we were talking about powerlessness as the theme of tonight's show, the more you live like that, it's not more power you get, but the more success you get. And there's a difference. There's a difference between those two things.
Success a lot of times is progress. I know for me in my darkest of times, just making some progress today. I have this journal. I'm always talking about my journal on here, but I can't tell you how gratifying it is for me at the end of the day to actually get through my goal list. Because I know when I'm not healthy, I don't even fill out my journal. Now I follow my flight plan more with more discipline when I'm living a sober, healthier life. I think one of the things too with our relationship, and I would encourage anybody that has a relationship that with a close fellow traveler that you can trust, is I'm never at zero with you. And what I mean by that is, and this is not a knock on AA, but I guess it kind of is. There's no 24-hour chips with you. We're recognizing this is an ongoing journey of two human beings that are going to screw up at some point or another. And every time that I've had something that really I've gotten sideways with, you always say, thank you for telling me this, or thank you for being brave enough to have this conversation with you. It's gotten to a point now where I don't feel brave to do it. I just can. I can just talk to you about this stuff. And I'm not trying to puff Tom up for the audience. I'm just saying that this type of relationship I've found to be beneficial to my journey to be a better father, a better partner to Sam, a better friend, a better business professional, because I get to be Chris everywhere. And Chris sometimes is a massive screw up. And sometimes I get to just be a freaking screw up and call Tom and say, Tom, man, I screwed up. And then we just talk about, okay, what's next? Not, oh my God, there you go. Every single thing you've done over the last 8 years is gone. It's not.
And it's not, Chris. And I can totally relate to what you're saying, because I have the same type of reaction when we talk. And you don't get stuck in the past, because there's so many people you come across on this journey that you can just tell they just cannot let go of their past. And I struggle with that. I think you struggle with that at times. And then you're afraid to talk about it. You're afraid to learn from the past so that you can let it go and move forward. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people on these journeys that we're on together, as well as others that are in this journey with us, that's what we struggle with at times. You get stuck in that past and you think you're worthless. You think, I'll never be able to do anything with my life. My life is over. I am a firm believer now, as I get further and further down this journey, that if my life is over, it's going to be over. But because I've given the gift of breath every day, it's not done. There's something, God has a plan for us left with the time we have. And what we owe to Him and to your higher power, in my opinion, that this is for me, is to listen to that voice and keep showing up, even though it is so hard at times. And I know how exhausting it can be. I've been there. I am there still at times. But when you can recognize that I think gives a lot of peace, comfort, and strength to continue on. Because it will end. And I recognize it will end. I just met with a guy, his son's a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. He's gonna be gone. He's gonna leave us soon. He's struggling. He's angry. He's afraid. But at the same time, the moments of gratitude I've shared with him, where he said, look, I wasted my life with addiction, with power, money, because he had some success on those fronts. And now he's like, and God kept me here so that he could hear his son tell him, Dad, thank you for being here in the moment, and you're sober, because you are giving me peace as I walk in to this next chapter. That's
without mentioning names. Did you meet this individual tonight?
I did.
I think I know who you're talking to, and if it's who you're talking to, he's a phenomenal human being.
Yeah,
he's actually he's one of the people I look to, if it's who I think it is.
Amazing story, and it showed me. And when you listen to his life story, and you see the roller coaster, he was at the top of the top, he was at the bottom of the bottom. He thought his life was over, and he was committed to to calling it quits, so to speak.
Mhm.
And look at this. He's using the death of his own son as inspiration to say, you know what, this is part of my plan.
Right.
And I'm bringing peace to my son. And as he even said, what an unbelievable gift that this sobriety and recovery and reliance off of self to recognize I have something more to offer than to bring peace to your child as your child will pass in your arms here very shortly. That is, I get goosebumps thinking about it.
Yeah,
It was
I don't know
one
how
of
I
those
would handle. I candidly, Tom, I don't even know how I'd handle that situation if something was going on like with my kids. I mean, it would just absolutely be just. I just can't even. I don't know what I would do. It would rip me apart because
to
they're
have that peace and gratitude. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I've been with him where he's angry, he's hostile, he is upset with God, but at the same time, he's able to set that aside and not let it contaminate him by distracting him to go to a bar, to go to a business meeting, to stay at the side of his child and live in the moment and bring peace to his child as his child goes into eternity. I mean, that you think about that.
I can't imagine.
Power is, most people will never experience that in their life, and I'm talking about billionaires I know.
Yeah.
They're gonna. Nobody goes to eternity with a U-Haul of objects. With
No,
them.
I mean, I heard there was a very famous law firm. I won't mention them on here, but out of Manhattan, very high-powered attorneys. They do everything from patent law to litigation. I mean, they're real estate transactions at the highest level, and they're a very well-known agency. And they're the guy that ran the whole program, obviously very well to do. He works in Manhattan but lives in Michigan. A friend of mine is connected with him, and he's very gravely ill, and all that. He's not working now. All that's gone. All this power and everything that's driven his whole life. The regrets he's had is he didn't spend more time with his kids. And you hear that almost cliche, the cat's in the cradle and all that stuff, but the fact is that we really do have those regrets with all this effort we put into life. I was thinking about something as you were talking. We all deal with stuff differently, and as close as you and I are, we definitely deal with calamity, our dumpster fires that we create differently. You're more one in the moment to project all the possible scenarios that this could get worse. And I'm more like, I'll more isolate and plow through and ignore very important things that I need to address. Neither one is really all that healthy, because I'll be just like, screw it. I can't take this. I got to just get beyond it. And I'm trying to run away from it as fast as I can and not address any of the things that actually have to be addressed. And you're on the other side addressing every stinking thing that might never, ever possibly happen. And they're two very different ways that we deal with things. But just because we get along really well and have very similar hearts on things, we deal with calamity very differently.
And that's my type A that you pick up on, where I'm like, and when I'm living like that, where I think I can control it all and I can take care of all the puzzles and balance all the pieces in the air, I know that doesn't work. And I've done that, and I've done that repeatedly. And when I don't do that, that is when I'm at my best.
Yeah.
That is when I know I am the most powerful at being successful at whatever I'm supposed to be doing with this gift of life. And to me, that's hard, because there's part of me that wants to be like you. I want to just go into a bunker and run and go away and hide.
But we're both
neither one works.
Yeah, but we're both hiding. So you're hiding behind the fear of everything, and I'm hiding by the fear of nothing. I don't want to see it. If I don't see it, it's not there. And then what's happening is that mine piles up. And so when I actually am forced to see it, I got a mess. You're at least it's in front of you, so it's neither one is all that healthy. But when I do, it does come to the next point really. And, we started this whole thing with powerlessness, and I think we've been kind of dancing around the subject, but how do we deal with powerlessness? There, in the discussion that you and I were part of, it was really two things. It was like, how do you deal with powerlessness over your addiction? And the other one, I kind of took that conversation down a different road, because I was thinking, how do I deal with powerlessness over circumstances? Because my circumstances I'm in right now, powerlessness is very evident in my life. And I'm telling you, my faith is being challenged like you would not believe. I adore Sam. I absolutely love Sam with all of my heart. And I love that she's the mother of my children. And I want good for her. and she's in a very difficult situation right now, and I am powerless to save her. And that's not a good situation for me. So at the same time, I'm struggling with my stuff too, and I'm not powerless over that. So it goes back to the serenity prayer, you know, what I own and what I don't, and that and the delineation between the two. But when we're talking to other people right now, we start with acceptance, accepting that life is not always we'd have it be right now. It just isn't. So now what do we do? So we've got an audience out here, Tom, that are facing things that you and I face all the time, that they're powerless over it. What do you do in the first 24 hours of a season that's full of fire? I mean, what are some of the things that you do to get yourself grounded again?
One of the most important things I try to do, and at times I struggle with it, is just be aware. Just to be aware that you're not powerful. You're not in control. It is in the what ifs, the rabbit holes, the bunker effect. You have to let it go and stay in that awareness, at least of that, gets you through that box that you find yourself in. Because I know there are people, and I've been there. I've been there multiple times. And I find the first step has to be awareness that, you know what, take a deep breath. You know, as cliche as it is, to calm yourself down, center yourself, put those 2 feet underneath you and ground yourself in a stable position, both physically, mentally, and spiritually. And if you can do that, you then have the strength to at least, okay, I'm going to step forward. And then you take a baby step. And then you take a marathon. Then you travel around the world. I mean, that's how it goes. And I just encourage people, be aware.
I think
when
that's
you're
why
in that rabbit hole, reach out to friends. Don't be afraid to lean on people in whatever group you may be associated with, or just a family member or a stranger. I've even found strangers that I've sat next to on planes that I've had some amazing conversations with, just because for whatever reason, it made no sense. But by the end of the flight, I'm like, wow, that was a powerful conversation. And that was the right time, right moment to be open to the message.
That's the spiritual context of it, I think. But, you know, I think that that's good advice, you know, take those baby steps. Even if you think like you slipped down a bank, you and I grew up in the country. You slip down a loose gravel bank. Good luck getting back up on that thing with big steps. You're grabbing twigs. You're taking little steps. You're trying everything you can, finding more solid ground, but you're not flailing and making your situation worse. You're more thoughtful, prescriptive, and smaller in your movements to get to where you got to go. And I think there's a lot of applications for that type of thinking. I guess one of the things that I do, the advice I would give on this thing is I go Chris in retro. I go retrospectively because, I mean, I've been at this for a while. Chances are I've been in a similar season at some point in my life because I've been a master of calamity for many years, and in terms of my own choices. And I looking back, I can see that I've gotten through certain things. Even in this situation, it's given me some modicum of peace where I can say, okay, I've seen storms before that were similar to this, and I've seen the other side. The biggest thing for me is keeping fear where fear should be, and not. I know fear is not going to go away, but keeping fear in its appropriate place. There's a snake in the trail, not have it turn into anxiety that says there will be a snake in the trail.
Well said.
And so that's why I'm struggling, like with the situation with Sam, is because I want to be her defender. I want to save her. I want things to go well for her. I want her to heal. I want all this future dreams. I want Disney. I want all these things, like all these plans we have set up here with the kids. And now things seem to be derailed for a little while. And I don't mean to make it all about that, but as we go through these things, if I look retrospectively and I remember some of the feelings I had, I look back and I don't mean to go on too far about this, but Thanksgiving 2017, I've shared this story with you. It's in my book about eating the turkey. I had options as Thanksgiving. In that moment when they slid that turkey and those nasty peas and that little crappy mashed potatoes through the slot and said, "Happy Thanksgiving" to me, I just melted in tears. Because I felt like the biggest piece of crap that ever walked on the planet. How could you do this to your kids and leave them and abandon them through the holidays and everything because you're a drunk, Chris? You did this to you, Chris. So I had options. I could not eat the food. I could, sulk. I could cause crap for the CO. I could make my celly hate me. I could do all kinds of stuff in a fit, or I could eat the turkey because that was what was in front of me, and I wouldn't be hungry later. I could go on my regular routine. And that lesson for me was I ate the turkey. Now that may not resonate with other people, but what sometimes I understand is I take my next available option for progress in chaos. And every time I get sideways, when I turn into some massive emotional rage response, I always blow it when I do that. But if I take the very obvious option of progress with sustenance and going through the motions, that's all I needed then. Those baby steps. That was baby steps for me in that moment.
And what I also hear in that moment, Chris, and I think you recognize it, is acceptance. You accepted that you had that turkey in front of you, and you accepted that different voices were having you go different ways and what you could do with it. And you listened to the inner voice that's the most important. And that was based on acceptance and recognizing that it was a positive step forward, even though it was a little step. But that's powerful. That's powerful. And that's a great example of what we're talking about.
I think at the core of it, what I do believe is I wouldn't have come this far if God did not have a purpose for me in this life. And if I can hang my hat on that, knowing that if he's brought me this far, he's got more to take me to. And then the piece I have too is that I have friends like you. I have Sam in my life. She's not gone. We're going through the season. He's making progress in her life while he's making progress in mine. And it's very evident that progress is moving alongside of each other. It's not departing paths. And in those places, if I look at the context of circumstance, I can oftentimes in these spiritual unknown things see peace, because I can see progress outside of my tasks of the day.
So well said. And we often say this to each other, and we often say this to other fellow journeymen. It's so simple, yet it's complicated. We overcomplicate it. It's a very simple concept. And
you said that exact same thing. I think you even said it last week.
I did, because I wrestle with that all the time, and I struggle with that. I'm like, if it's supposed to be this simple, why is it so hard? And that is the wisdom of being able to recognize and be aware that you're fighting that internal struggle. I do it all the time. And the sooner I let it go and say it's not that complicated, it is as simple as having that turkey that's in front of you and being grateful for it, and then recognizing your own self-worth because you took a positive step forward. That is true strength.
The first line in my next book that I've been talking a little bit about is who knew a turkey could make you so sad? It's the very first line in the next book because it's like it just did, and it was a good lesson for me. But it's something I draw on frequently. We're at we're about 38 minutes into this thing. We were going to try to keep a little shorter tonight, and you and I have a tendency to talk quite a bit. For the audience standpoint, I want to make sure that they're focused right now. But relative to powerlessness or anything we've talked about tonight, Tom, what would be your take home for somebody that might be struggling like you and I have? Let's just keep it very specific. You and I have been through some bumpy roads based on our own choices, and people want to say, well, if you hadn't done this, then you wouldn't. And like, no freaking kidding, Captain Obvious. I get it. That's not helpful. So what advice would be helpful to somebody that's like,
to people like that, Chris, what I would say is, look, if you're that smart, then tell me what pride means. Tell me what the sin of pride and ego is, because I've wrestled with that for decades, and I have yet to have anybody come up to me and really put that in a succinct type of answer, especially if they're really type A and they're still in control of everything. They can't see it. They're blinded by it. So my simple advice is, look at set your ego, set your pride, be self-aware of your own incapacity to move past things, and just let it go. Just let it go. And if you can't let it go in that moment, then you know what? There's nothing saying you can't just take a nap. Put your head down, wait till the sun comes up tomorrow. and it is amazing. When that sun comes up, you're like, what the hell did I just spend 8 hours of yesterday wasting my life on the what if?
You just cut all of our mid-20s and lower out of the audience. They're like, oh yeah, these two old guys want to go take a nap.
But I'll tell you, but even then you can't do that. It's just so hard.
Yeah. Anyway, well, Tom, I really appreciate you being on here, and thank you for joining again. I know we've made a few of these videos together, but you and to the audience, I want you to understand, Tom's going through stuff and has gone through stuff in his life. I'm going through stuff in my life. Sam's going through stuff. She's going through a ton of stuff in her life. We're all part of this program. I am you, you are me. And everything blew up within a week and a half after we went out and did some work in the North Clinton area of Rochester. And so to me, it was really no coincidence that we went through the struggles we did. Now, there were a lot of pre-existing things that we were struggling with that just all seemed to hit at the same time. But I tell you all that for one reason. When I get on here and I say that we're fellow travelers, I'm not on here preaching at you. This is not me being an expert resident of all things about this stuff. I'm just saying we're walking the same journey. You know, we can't do it alone, and you can't either. Whether you think you can or not, trust me, I've learned the hard way, you can't. So Tom and I, as fellow travelers of you, hope that you get something out of this show that's going to be beneficial to you. Please like and subscribe, comment. Check out the TikTok channel. I've got a few new things up there that you might find useful. And but between now and the next time we talk, I'm going to do my very best to stay out of trouble, and I hope you do too. Thanks, Tom, for joining the show.
Great. Thanks for having me on.